since this time of because quarantine, part of that process for me is going to a Starbucks on a Friday morning.
Yes,
And
Starbucks open still?
no, I don't. So,
I'm like,
dude, I'm
what
lost,
Starbucks are you
man.
going to?
I'm lost right now.
My
Talk to me
Starbucks
about
is called my Dodge Charger. I
yeah.
make a cup of coffee and I go down to my car. That's what I call going to the office. And I'll turn on the car. I got Wi-Fi. I got music. I got my coffee. I'll work in the car, run down the window, get some breeze. Oh, we're
That's
going back home now. Close down the office, go back upstairs. Sometimes I just need to get out of my house. I meant to reach out.
that's
You're
funny.
on my list. You're on my favorites list. In my phone, I have like my favorites list is not my actual favorites. It's people that I am supposed to call,
Yeah,
once a month just to be like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? So
yeah.
I apologize if I didn't get to that button.
It's all good, man. That it's funny that you mentioned that list. How do you establish who's on that list?
It's a considerate process actually. I mean, there's some that are just on there by nature, like my girlfriend's on there, my mom's on there, my kids are on there, my parents are on there. And then honestly, I don't remember when it was, but I do this thing called the quadrants where I sit
Yes.
there and say, hey, what's important? And I was working relationship quadrant, and I was working on um, taking my relationships beyond just my family circle and being really conscious about, specifically there was this time I was like, you know what, I need some guys to talk to.
Yes.
Which guys do I always talk to that always, I can have a man-to-man conversation. We can tell the truth to, who are those people that every Christmas I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen blah, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
I literally started making a list of um, impactful friends, friends I felt good around, friends I always felt like, important friends, friends I want for life, and they're all on that list. And
Yes.
I use it for everything. Like whether it's, sometimes I'll invite my friends from California out to my son's play just because I just want him to know my son's having a play. Call me and be like, yo, what's going on? I can't make the play. I know you
Yes.
can't get in here from California, but check the Instagram story. You'll see it. I really appreciate the friends that I have that are impactful and caring. It makes a big
It's funny that you
difference.
said it just about like it's almost like you're evaluating um, who are the people that you want to give your time to and give your space to, right? And
Absolutely.
I do something similar, maybe like once a year. I kind of
Hmm.
evaluate who do I want to pour my life and my energy into? Who do I want to spend time with? Who do I want to make a more concerted effort to connect with? Um, even like couples, right? As a husband and wife, like who's like what people do we want to spend our time with, and what people are we gonna just slowly distance ourselves from, and that sort of thing,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
um, those lists, and I'm sure if you go into any kind of business, any kind of business planning thing too, that's the first thing they tell you to do is to build your list, right? Like to build those contacts and stuff. So whether
Yeah,
it's
it kind of sounds like the 80-20 rule.
yeah, exactly. So no, it's interesting.
So much like the competition that's out there is just it's very watered down. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff out there.
Yes.
And my big challenge in the kettlebell space has honestly been to communicate the uniqueness of the unique value of how I do it.
Yes.
Um, it's honestly it's quite experiential. Like once you try doing the kettlebells in this type of way, and then you try doing it in some of the other traditional styles, it's really easy to see why what I do is just more effective.
I agree.
It's more efficient
Hmm.
and it's more enjoyable and it just works better for the clients.
Yes.
Um, it's challenging, honestly, sometimes frustrating
Hmm.
to see all of the flow stuff out there, because it is my style that influences and helps make that better. That's honestly, I don't. It's hard for me to take credit for it. I don't want to take credit for it, but I know that fluid system of moving from one to the other, one to the other,
The
I'm a very big
transitions.
part. Yeah, I'm a very big part of why that's even popular in the first place. So,
Yes, I've taken your course, took one of your introductory courses, and for the amount of people that I've heard say, I don't like kettlebells, kettlebells are dangerous, you're gonna hurt yourself with kettlebells, and then to see by contrast the way that you teach it in a way that makes so much sense for the trainer to communicate it to their client,
hmm
has made a big difference for me in the way that I teach it too, right? So when the times that I'm
hmm
teaching the fundamentals of it, it's like your approach makes it so palatable for the trainer to be able to teach it. You know what I'm saying? As opposed
hmm
to making the
totally.
kettlebells like something that's, yeah, you're right, because it can be dangerous, man. It's it's one of those things that you can do some serious damage with it if you don't understand the fundamentals. And I think you do a masterful job of communicating those fundamentals to get people moving safely. We talk a lot about where we're going. Can you just talk like just for a second of like what got you interested in kettlebells in the first place?
Okay, well, in a nutshell, I've always looked for the most efficient and effective way to do something. Like I like when I do something, I go all the way in. Usually when I'm doing something like anything, it's for a reason. I'm very doing things just for fun. Like fun for me is just being in the moment of what I'm doing. But I don't know, I'll do this just for fun. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so for me, these are skill sets. So it was like this transition in my exercise career where, um, I graduated and I'd been lifting weights for like 4 or 5 years, just like I did when I was, playing basketball. And then I literally one day was under the squat rack. I was about to get under like 225 or something like that. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I just really, I want to say lost the passion for lifting, but I didn't want to do it like that anymore. I really knew that there was so much more, and I
Yes.
and I didn't know what else there was.
Mhm.
So it was just by chance that I saw somebody training a lady with kettlebells, and this is we're talking like 15 plus years ago. So at this point in Canada, you couldn't find them in stores. There was really only one person. He's one of the first guys in Canada to really start training with these things. And I just I took a class with him, and it couldn't have been like half an hour into the class before I realized how impactful it was. What I
Yes.
realized is that as a person who likes to train, um, it's there's a strength and then there's a cardiovascular strength that comes from doing sport. It's one thing to be strong in the weight room. It's another thing to be strong on a field. I don't care what field it is, soccer
True.
field, football, basketball, they're all the same, right? Like,
Right.
so that kind of like blood, sweat, muscle, everything. Um, I found that kettlebell allowed me to tap into my athletic side, my strength side, my mobility side, like everything. And all of a sudden, exercising was fun. All of a sudden, exercising had all of these different directions, and I could just be so creative. So, I mean, honestly, it started with me, and this desire to always have like a great body, which for me is a body that looks great, feels great, and can perform, pain
Yes.
free.
Right.
And yeah, I just went all into it. Like I started taking courses, I started traveling, I read every book, you know. I was doing my CS at the time, and I made kettlebell my thesis topic for my final exam. So that was the start of my manual, doing the research to write about that course. Um, yeah, I just it honestly to me still is the most efficient and effective way to do the whole body strong, you know,
Yes.
and just versatile. Like, the quarantine hits, I lose the weight room. I don't really lose a step. I just, it's the same thing at home, so it's still to me the most effective strength cardiovascular tool out there. I don't think. Honestly, it's been a combination because I do Pilates too. I do yoga. I basically have two big parts to exercise. I have one part that I exercise, which is that physical strength, mobility training, and I have one thing I call INERCISE, which is Whether you're working your diaphragm, whether I'm working on my energetics, whether I'm working on my breathing. And sometimes that does require me to move my body. Those two things I combine to,
Can you see
create the
that?
body the way I
Repeat
want.
that again. So like exercise and inner size, like break those two down again because I never heard.
Yeah,
Like I'm
so
gonna.
INERCISE is a word I'm actually coining. It came across in a conversation I was having with my partner, and you know, it, when I tend to group things and look at like the similarities, and I'm saying, okay, what's the most, again, I'm always looking for what's the most effective and efficient way to get to this point. There is a lot of stuff to do. Sometimes when people talk to me about how much I move and exercise, uh, I can admit that what I do is probably not realistic in terms of time commitment for a lot of people. They just like, I love it, I work it, I do it.
Right.
Like sometimes I'm doing stuff for my own personal edification and enlightenment and growth, and sometimes I'm doing it because I honestly feel like somebody's got to lead the charge. You know, um,
Hmm.
some CEO, some dad, some leader has got to do the things that are required of your body to have a healthy mind and body state while they're still being the CEO and leader, for people to recognize that it is totally doable. Like it is absolutely doable. I do it. A lot of people do it. So the terms came down to conversations I've been having with men that I've been speaking to, because that's a big place that I want to focus my time. How do I help um, men be their best, do their best, in terms of like moving and thinking the right way? And so I have it down to really two big components that you must do. You must exercise, and everybody knows what exercise is. Now, there's categories to exercise. Like there's strength training, there's cardio training, there's flexibility. You got to do those things. And from my experience, you know, people with the best physical bodies have it because they do the same thing over and over. They're
Yes.
chasing a skill set.
Yes.
They're trying to get good at something.
Yes.
Your body is the symptom of whatever skill set you're chasing. Now,
For good
in
or for
general
bad.
fitness, yes. And in general fitness, most people don't have an endpoint that they're changing, that they're trying to improve outside the look of their body. So in other words, they're literally training the symptom instead of training the cause.
Yes.
So for me with exercise, why I like kettlebell, or honestly any variation of weight training that turns it into a sport. A lot of people talk negatively about CrossFit, for example. I personally am a big fan of CrossFit. I think CrossFit it's taken fitness and it's given it an objective that's not about the body.
Mm.
Therefore, if you do it and work on those skills in an intelligent way, you'll get that body, like
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're not worried about the body. You're actually worried about how many squats you can get and how many thrusters you can get and the movements are intelligently selected. That to me is an effective system. The movements themselves should be the goal, and the body results from you getting good at the movement. So
Yes.
that's what I love about kettlebell. Like there is a structure inside of kettlebell lifting. There's purpose there if you understand it. So even though I'm a kettlebell cross trainer, I do understand that there are three primary lifts: clean and jerk, jerk and snatch. That's it. So even though I'm lifting all of this other stuff, ultimately my clients have to be able to perform one of those three movements very well,
Very well.
right? That's their measure of success. If they can do that, then I know that I'm improving their skills,
Yes.
right? And better skills leads to a better body. So that's
Yes.
that's my approach to exercise, and that's literally how I teach people how to teach kettlebells. That's the system that I use for kettlebell
Yeah.
training. So on the inner sides, This one just kind of came to me as I've been really thinking about it. Um, I practiced yoga for many years, and I do love the postures, because I find them honestly really relaxing and they improve my flexibility. My biggest part has been the education on how to breathe, how to move with your breathing. If you practice yoga a lot, you'll know that there are times where we just work on breathing. And so getting good with, so that's where my yoga breathing practice started. And then I started studying Tantra, and then I started studying Tai Chi, and then, Wim Hofman, and there's all these different
branches of breathing. Almost.
Of breathing, dude.
Yeah.
You can sit down and do breathing exercises for an hour and be sweating, And so, and now, okay, so as a study of Pilates, if you read Joseph's book, he cues the breathing on every single movement. There is no movement without the breath. Right. And when you practice like that, and it totally transforms the way you lift. And that happens in Indian clubs, that happens in yoga. I say everybody needs an INERCISE practice. And INERCISE practice lets you combine breathing, your mental focus, and whatever movements required as a skill set. You should actually feel yourself to be able to think more clearly about your body, to be more aware of your body. And if there's a big physical result of that, you should have improved breathing technique and capacity. And considering that everybody's worried about the respiratory system right now, and willing to take every pill possible to boost your immune system, the other side of boosting your respiratory system is to train your diaphragm. Yes. It's a muscle. You train your heart, you train those things. So that's what INERCISE is. It's the other side that I think everybody needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think every movement is mindful movement. That's what
mindful.
So we were just talking about exercise being skill sets. Yes. Okay, so the difference between somebody who exercises for a profession or for a purpose, and the difference between somebody exercises for fun and for fitness is often the awareness of how it should be done. A squat is a skill.
Right.
A lunge is a skill. Pushing is a skill. Push-ups are a skill. Pull-ups are a skill. Part of the skill is strength, but most of the skill is knowing what to do with your body.
Yes.
So anytime you're doing exercise, that should be mindful movement. People are afraid of meditating. Mm-hmm. They're afraid to people are afraid of the word meditation,
Let's start there. Some truth.
Yeah, let's start there. So if you study what meditation is, what hypnosis is, and what this thing called trance is, you will come to understand that they're all the same thing. Trance is that state where you're kind of lost in something. So sometimes, everybody's had this. You're driving, you're going home, you're thinking about something. All of a sudden, your head snaps back on, and you're like, oh, I'm home. How did I get here? You don't even know how you got to where you are.
Right.
You were in trance. You were lost in a meditation. Mm-hmm. Because you were doing something that you do so automatically. And so we've all had that experience. What people call daydreaming is a form of trance. It's a form of meditation. You're inside your own head. Now, the problem is you're not in control of it, or maybe not even aware of it, and don't know how you got there. And so you feel out of control. That's your ego standing in the way. But you did it to yourself. Who else can do it? It's you, And so what meditation is about is honestly just practicing building the relationship with your mind, with the voices in your head, with the voices that aren't supposed to be in your head, finding space and silence. And it's really practice. I know I'm not perfect at it. I actually don't know any, but I actually find it hard to believe that somebody could actually get perfect at meditation. I've only read about that in books.
Right. Yeah.
It's just hard for me to conceive, but I mean, I'll keep believing and trying, you know. But the one that I think shakes me the most is somebody who's like, yeah, I know that meditation works, but I can't do it.
Hmm.
You know, we stand in our way for stuff like that. You know,
Absolutely.
if there's a reason why I think it's important, you know, like we're in this world right now where the most important thing that we're being forced to change our perspective. Like some people are fighting really hard to hold on to their perspective, but I think overall the Earth is asking us to stop and just consider what you're doing. You know, man, like even if you think about, you know, every leadership book has told you that journaling and self-reflection is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. Well, you know, meditate. That's meditation. Like it's really saying stop and think about you and only you and how you're doing and how you're showing up, and you know that's where all the clearing work has got to happen.
Question with that is the writing down part a transitional stage to meditation where I need to capture those thoughts and put them to paper before instead of just capturing those thoughts? Is that like a helpful transitional step to meditation, or is that a meditation in itself?
You know, I think that can work either way. I mean, okay, the beauty to me of writing something down is that you've taken a thought, which is really just energy, and it's the first step of manifestation. It actually became something more physical, even if it's just those markings on the page. So that's the manifestation process. So that being the case, writing down becomes this bridge between energetic manifestation and physical manifestation. Okay. So it can work either way. You could stop and sit and think and, you know, let go. And at the end, you could take what you realized and write it down. Yes. And writing it down will help you bring it to action. Yes. It'll help you make sure that you're clear on what you actually realized. It becomes this physical reminder to actually do it, you know. So yes, going from mind to paper is really important. But paper to mind is also important. Like when you read a book and you're inspired and you want to be like, well, okay, I need to stop and think about that for a minute.
Yes, yes.
You know, like that's important stuff. Or when you're writing something down, absolutely, you're writing down your notes and you're like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Let me go think about how to do that. Yes. Right. So it works both ways. So there is no separation, but yes, you can move from physical and energetic both.
Yeah, I call it capturing my thoughts when I put pen to paper, when I journal. That's the way I've kind of framed it for myself, because that's when I'm capturing those thoughts. So everything's swirling around my head, and it's like with a net, I'm just going to grab everything and kind of condense it, put it to paper in a way that makes sense to me, that I can look back and be, okay, this is what I was trying to.
You're trying to construct something.
Construct, that's what I was looking for.
If you think about like Tesla, like the world's greatest inventor, and if you ask him how he invented stuff, Tesla would just sit there, and he would sit there and just think about it, and he would literally design every piece of his experiment in his head and then run the experiment in his head, and it's only when he felt he had it in there that he would write it down. So yeah, for sure, you're more than capturing your thoughts. You are manifesting you're constructing them. You're bringing them from the ether into this plane.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so funny, like being like totally transparent. Since this time of quarantine, part of that process for me is going to a Starbucks on a Friday morning. And
Starbucks open still?
No, I don't. So,
dude, what Starbucks are you going to?
I'm lost right now.
My Starbucks is called my Dodge Charger. Yeah. I make a cup of coffee and I go down to my car. That's what I call going to the office. and I'll turn on the car. I got Wi-Fi, I got music, I got my coffee. I'll work in the car, run down the window, get some breeze. Oh, we're going back home now. Close down the office, go back upstairs. Sometimes I just need to get out of my house.
I don't have that cadence to my week, and I don't need
Oh,
Starbucks.
buddy.
I need that spot where I can just go capture those thoughts, put pen to paper, and work on my business instead of working in my business. Do all those different things, or just like reflect on the week, or do like that one. I haven't found that space. I've done it, but I haven't found that space to do it in yet.
Like on a regular basis, you mean?
On a regular basis, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't. And okay, so this has helped me a lot. Like, I think a lot of people, especially when I try to do a week program with them, they're like, oh, well, people like weeks aren't real. We always have this conversation about how time is not real.
Yes.
Time is not real. We make it up, and it's just something that we use to communicate, right? It's just something that helps us regulate the rhythms.
Yes.
So, I mean, I was talking to somebody about working out and, you know, oh, I'm off 2 weeks and blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what? It doesn't matter if, you know, you can't measure your consistency over 4 weeks. You know, the truth is, if you really want to know how well you've done, look at 52 weeks. You know, so when somebody says, oh, I'm only meditating once a week, if you meditate once a week for a year, that's 52 meditations. That's a lot of meditations.
Yes.
So now once that becomes part of your way, and you know you're not going to meditate you're just not. Like, so let's say you get, I don't know, let's call it 48 for the year. Let's call it 40 for the year. 2 years, that's 80 meditations. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's how the body transforms, and especially with something soft and subtle like that, I really find it's more important to commit to just doing it on a regular basis
Yes.
than it is to try to do it and achieve something. You know, when it comes to like INERCISE, the only thing to achieve is getting better. There is no end result.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't do that stuff and be like, oh, you can't get a six-pack from breathing. It just don't work like that, right?
Right.
You know, and even if my breathing capacity improves, who's going to know? Where does that show up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like, does that show up in a race? You know, does that it doesn't show up anywhere, but besides inside you and your recognition of what to do with that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, it's so true.
Honestly,
meeting with him as
I
well.
am loving the quarantine.
Yes.
I was telling my daughter, I've been telling her, this is the greatest thing that has happened since Nelson Mandela got freed. I just can't think of, I'm serious, in my lifetime.
Yes.
I mean, I was around when the Berlin Wall came down, and I was just like, okay, like, I mean, I appreciate the Berlin Wall coming down, but it didn't affect me. I'm sorry.
Personally.
Nelson got free. No, Nelson was free. That was massive. Obama got elected. Like, I'm serious, okay?
Yeah.
This quarantine, like, the universe just hit the stop button.
Yes.
It can do that? I didn't, you know, and then, okay, I'm like everybody else, like watching the skies in India go blue.
Yes.
So fast.
Yes.
I was like, because listen, like the universe is like your body. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Sometimes I eat garbage food. Sometimes I do. So I have this theory. If I'm going to eat garbage food, I'm going to eat it all right now. I'm not going to spread it out over the week. If I buy a bag of chips and I'm going to kill the chips are dead.
Yes.
Chips won't make it home. I'm just going to kill them.
Right.
Because it's not me normally, and, you know, it's like, why let that poop trickle? Like, just poop it out, get it over with, right? So I guess watching, like the air is the lungs of our planet.
Yes.
What? I guess I'm just so blown away that the earth could clean itself that
It just pressed the reset button. It absolutely just pressed
right,
the reset button.
like that.
So you know what's
Now,
interesting? Sorry, you know what's like in Joseph Pilates' day, the Spanish flu, same thing happened.
Yes! Right. He was building it during the 1918s.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. You know, so it's funny when people are saying, "Oh, we've never been through this before." I'm like, yeah, we have.
Yes. Yeah,
And,
Joseph Plies was
you
right in the middle
know,
of it, man. Like that was one of the things that happened.
right,
Yeah.
dealing with respiratory
Yes.
issues and
Yes.
healing those
As
things.
a
And,
Pilates
oh,
instructor. And I
pushing you,
challenge,
isn't it?
what's that?
It's pushing you, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Because I mean,
pushing
that's the
me.
thing. I want to be, I like to be a wordsmith to some degree, right? So if I can, from a distance, teach someone Pilates, or from a distance, I intentionally grabbed a couple clients I've never worked with just to
Hmm.
see if I can get them to a place of having a great body through my
Hmm.
words alone. I can't get my hands on them. I can't correct them. I only have the
Hmm.
vantage point that I have from here.
Yeah, I landed 2 new clients as well, and it has been like it's been good, honestly. Like, but unlike where I would normally walk into a session and let the words come from what I see,
Yes.
now I sit down and think about, okay, this is what I want to see.
Yes.
What words do I need to use to make that
Yes.
happen? And then I still have to watch them and give that feedback. But I've been
Right.
a lot more intentional on my choice of words and,
Right.
even like my pauses in the camera or,
Yes.
sometimes I can't even see the person, but I know that they're doing the sets and I'll be like, come on.
You can
All
vision.
right, you got, yeah, it's just, I'm still
Absolutely.
coaching. I know you
Still
can hear
coaching.
me.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's cool.
It's good.
I'm enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it too. I think collectively we are getting sharper.
Yes. Oh, I was saying, have you been thinking about how we need to change our behavior as trainers to not just protect, but I think, okay, so when I've been seeing some of the stuff that people are doing, I'm like, oh, that's nice. It makes me feel like you care. I'm not sure it's
Considerate.
actually going to help anything, but I feel safer just knowing that you're wiping these pens off. I don't
Right.
know, and so I've been thinking about that. I'm like, I think I need to do stuff to make sure my clients see that I'm actually doing the right stuff to keep them safe.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I've said to one of my when I'm working at South Common, if I'm teaching a class, there's times that
Hmm.
I'll like clean the windows before the class starts, just so
Hmm.
people can smell Windex when they walk into the room.
Right.
That gives people the perception that I've actually taken some time to clean the room and give them a clean space
Okay.
before the class starts.
Okay, I
I
got
haven't
it
been
now.
ghetto and just like sprayed Windex in the air. I actually did clean the
No, no,
windows.
no. Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but just doing it that close to when the class starts, that people smell cleaning agents in the air gives them a
Yeah, yeah,
sense of,
yeah.
okay, someone has put some effort into making this room ready for me to exercise. And if
Hmm.
I was doing that from before, I think I'm going to be even more mindful of making little gestures like that that give optics to the fact that I'm giving consideration to.
What are you gonna do about your hands? Like, I mean, I know it's sometimes the space between washing your hands is tough, from client to client. I would rather use soap water and then oil than I do not like those
Those wipes.
antiseptic things. They're just terrible on my hands. I
Yeah.
haven't found disinfectant wipes yet. I've heard about those, but I mean, there's the Lysol ones, but
Yeah, the
I'm
cleaning
just wondering
ones.
if you've thought about like your process from like,
It's you know what? It's gonna come out of their time. Like I mean, think about it. If I have a session at 10 o'clock and I just finish it with somebody, I'll be right back.
mm,
I'm just gonna go wash my hands before we start our session. Sure, no problem. We start at
sure,
10:03. Time that means nothing to you, but like respecting their time, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
that's one of those things where I would say that's going to come out of their time, so to speak. I'm going to take a minute, clean, wash my hands. I'll come back. We'll start a session. So then any interactions, touches, whatever, still wiping equipment, but they know at least I'm coming to this session hands clean.
Right. It's how you start your session.
Yeah, and even if it caught like everyone says, I don't have time between sessions. Well, that's going to come out of that person's session because you're
It's
showing that
their
that's
time.
it's their time and it's that
I
important
like that one.
to you.
Think me think about that one. Your
Yes.
other thing, since we're on this call, I'd share like my thoughts. Like, you know, um, sometimes I go back to like my NLP training and like try to
Yes.
remember how people understand things. And so, yeah, so you're reminding me it's the smell of Windex that makes me feel safe because anytime you feel smell Windex, you know that something has been cleaned. So yeah, I was just reminding myself, oh yeah, okay, so if I want to reinforce, so what are the 5 senses that I need to, how do I engage the five senses so that somebody knows that the space is clean,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You know, so maybe, yeah. So like if I wipe it and like if you wipe something and you see like it's clean, or you see like the, you know, evaporating, or, you know, when you touch something, it should feel clean, right? The smell one we covered. What is, does clean have a sound?
Squeaky clean, absolutely. If you're wiping a window and it's just as clean and you hear that squeaking just as you wiped out the last bit, people hear that? If you're
clean.
Like, yeah, man. Wrote down just one thing. We could go for 2 more hours, but I did want to talk about this one thing which you said right at the beginning about authentic relationships between men.
Whoa. One of my favorite topics. I think that's,
one of my favorite topics. Yeah, because I mean, I think we as men are afraid of true connection, being vulnerable in a space where someone can call me out on stuff.
Admitting, yes, I agree, 100%. And in this world, in this state of the planet where, leadership is important. Okay, leadership is really important right now. The balance between feminine and masculine is really important. And honestly, okay, I think I'm going slow because I'm kind of skirting the deeper issue. The deeper issue is, as humans, we don't understand the difference between male and masculine, female and feminine. We think that they are the same thing, and they are not. Okay, you can be male and
female and
feminine, correct, and female and masculine. So masculine and feminine are an energetic way of being. They're not physical characteristics, and so those it's your job as a human to know which one to do in relation to whom you're with.
Tell me if you agree with this. Masculinity can only be bestowed upon by masculinity.
As in, masculinity can only be discussed or shared from the masculine. I don't know if I know the full division. Given to, yes, it does take, a feminine cannot teach the masculine. A feminine can be aware of the masculine and know what it is, but you cannot bestow masculine characteristics from the feminine perspective. Yeah, so that's why sometimes mothers have tough time raising sons, because to be an effective raiser of a young man, that female has to put on her masculine so much, which may or may not be natural for her. I mean, if it's natural for her, she might have an easy time with it. If it's not natural for her, it's going to feel like work. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to throw off her energy system. So in terms of, there's two parts of it. So there's man to man, as in I'm growing as a man. Sometimes you need a man to help hold you accountable to the qualities of masculine, and how to have them show up for you in this world. Even just understanding what masculine is. I think a lot of people think that masculine is not necessarily, masculine is not aggressive.
No.
Well, manly, I don't know what that word means.
I was just going to say it. That's why I use that word.
I wouldn't even mess with that word. Yeah. Right. Masculine is not what we physically think of manly traits. Masculine is strong, but it's not necessarily a loud strong. It's a very quiet, patient, deliberate strong. Masculine energy is the opposite of feminine energy. And feminine energy is ecstatic and electrifying and jumping and moving. So whatever you recognize a feminine energy to be, you must realize that the masculine is on the opposite side. Sometimes
feminine energy can be strong, no?
Oh yeah, they're both strong. Like water, which one's stronger, the water or the rock? it depends. What are you hitting? What are you doing? You know,
Right.
so
Who's
like the
imposing on
truth,
whom?
correct. Like, so the masculine and feminine, the way to maximize them is to harmonize them. You know, they actually aren't, they shouldn't be working against each other. They should be working
Right.
with each other. But it takes a respect of, so what are the strengths of feminine? And what are the strengths of masculine? And, you know, in a relationship, in a male to female relationship, you got to understand that.
Yeah.
Um,
So shifting it
yeah, I
back to
think
male to
there's
male relationship, that's the piece that I think is the
in
most threatening
in a
for men, would you say? Like, why is it
it's
easier for a man to just have just a comfortable platonic conversation with a female as opposed to reach out to their male friend and say, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm up to, this is how much money I make, this is what happened today, kind of conversation?
yeah. I think there's two parts to that. I think one part is, okay, so in any interaction, like for that to happen well, one of the men, both of the men, you have to be comfortable in your feminine. You know, vulnerability is a feminine trait. You know what I mean? Like
Really?
openness is a feminine trait. Stillness is a masculine trait. Like, I think, okay, so there's a couple of books that I read that helped me really kind of understand this. You know, one of them was the way of the superior man. Like that, honestly, has been one of that's a really great book. I think every man should read it because it talks about like the masculine energy, what it is, and how to deal with the feminine energy that shows up everywhere in your life, in work, at play, you know, in your relationships. You know, it talked about things like, you know, why is it that your girlfriend always gets on your nerves sometimes? Like, no man can tell you that their feminine co-part doesn't get on their nerves. Energetically, that's their job. They really don't have a choice. You know, it's just the nature of the feminine is to poke the bear so that the bear can show up, and that's how they receive masculine energy. I may
And I was,
be
yeah,
paraphrasing it a little bit,
no, but I hear what you're
that
saying.
idea, that gameplay, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
in a man-to-man relationship where, you know, we're trying to talk about things that are inside, you know, I've got to open up and let go. I've got to be a little bit more vulnerable, and I'm looking for a safe space. Man is that a man will give you an answer than a woman will. You'll get a different answer when you ask the question of a masculine than you will of a feminine. But it does take you to soften and relax. You can't be manly and
Yes.
try to be gentle at the same time. So you got to be so
Right.
okay with knowing what strength is. Right? So when we said, is there strength in both? Yes, there's strength in both. But the question is, what is strength?
What is strength?
Because strength has two dimensions too.
Yes.
Like strength is being malleable strength or is being immovable strength.
Right.
Both. It
Both.
depends. So
And,
yeah, like I think men. Hmm,
and
I
okay.
think men in general, like when we confide, I just knowing their feminine side, and we
So you're glitching
sometimes
out
I
there,
feel
but
like,
can you just repeat that last bit?
yeah, I was saying I think men are sometimes not very educated on the importance of their masculine, of their feminine side, or how to access it just comfortably. Like a lot of it is, most of it
Yes.
is you have to really be okay with the skin that you're in, you know?
I just wrote down confidence. Just as
You know, confidence and awareness, like, hmm yeah, like, I don't know. Like you really,
the ego
it's not always
too,
easy
right?
to admit that, you know, you're not, the ego is dangerous.
Well, you're saying that. I mean, like if I go to someone, if I go to a female with that question, no, I'm gonna get a different answer than I would from a male. Part of that is because it's more comfortable to go to the female because they're not gonna appeal to or
You don't feel
challenge
as
me
threatened.
in or threaten me in the same way because
Hmm.
it's not that battling of masculinity against my masculinity.
Yes, you don't feel like their masculinity can overpower yours, so it's easier to say it. Right. But truth of the matter is, if you want your masculinity to grow, it needs to face masculinity and have that masculinity be like, what? And then you need to be able to answer,
Just like a
yes.
bench press, I need to stimulate and challenge the muscle at the fiber to grow.
Yeah.
Because there's no overloading of that muscle. There's no overloading of that
Could you
characteristic.
use, okay. So that's like a masculine example of that.
Yes. Yep.
Can you say that with a feminine example?
Why do
Because I
many
guess I'm struggling
females
with
say, okay, here, so why have you, okay,
this. Is
let
how
me
me
go
and
like
Martin
this.
talk, y'all. This is real me and Martin now.
Yes, yes,
This
yes.
is this is the real stuff that we talk about when y'all ain't around.
Do you know any females that say, I just can't talk to any other women? I only have guys as friends.
I mean, I do know females who have mostly guy friends, a lot of guy friends.
What is a
I
common
don't think
reason
I've
why
ever
they
heard
say
them
that?
say they don't like talking to females. They don't get along with ladies for whatever reasons.
For whatever reason. What is that forever reason do you hypothesize? Would that not be the exact same thing? There's a threat to their femininity, there's going to be a challenge, or there's going to be an uncomfortableness with the or a competitive nature, something appeals to
Sure,
what we call feminist, feminine. So there's going to be some challenge to what they define as feminine, or some threat to what they define as feminine in that conversation. So they step away from that conversation to someone who,
sure. I mean, that would make sense.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a general blanket statement, but like,
No, okay,
it's
but what
not
I was
relevant.
saying was when you were saying, okay, we need to challenge the muscle like a bench press,
Mhm.
like when it's a man to man. Um, okay, how can because I feel like okay, it's what I didn't. We're just metaphors, right? You know, what the stimulation I think that masculine needs sometimes is to be able to relax,
Okay.
right? To soften, to go the other way. So,
Okay.
you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
Yes.
how do I stimulate flexibility?
Right.
How do I stimulate expanded range of thinking and being?
Okay. All right. So yes, I
That's
see that.
something,
Yeah,
yeah,
I follow
that's what
you.
I was trying to say because I do agree you do need to be challenged,
Hmm.
but for a man to challenge a man to be a man, shit that happens all the time. That's called sports. That's called arm wrestling. That's called hanging out with your boys.
Right.
You
Right. Right.
know, the challenge that we need to do is, oh, I feel like crying right now, and I need a dude to like help me get through whatever it is. My woman is doing this. I can't get to see my son. I can't get through to my daughter. You know, I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling scared as shit about, taking the next leap in my business.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I
Yes.
need I need to be able to share that fright with somebody
Yes.
who can help me find my self confidence without damaging me. I need to grow
I gotcha.
gently as a man. You know what
And
I mean?
I
That's
think, yeah, no, I follow you on that. I think I was looking at it from that same perspective, but the other,
just a
almost
different
like, yeah,
example.
the different example is almost like that. What you're saying there is one side. The other side to that same example is there are some areas where we are strong and we need to be refined in that strength, need to be completed in that strength, to be challenged in those
Hmm.
areas where we need to be completed, not the areas where we're
Sure.
deficient.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about different perspectives on the same thing, but
Absolutely.
we're talking about how do you complete this transition to becoming a man, a human. Like I am a male human, you know what I mean? And that requires me to have access to both sides of myself, all of myself,
Right.
so I can show up fully when it's necessary.